Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 5090 O-Level Biology, June 13, question paper 1 2, video 1. And this is going to have question 1 to 20. And I want to start this with the quote, life is all about making choices. Always do your best to make the right ones and always do your best to learn from the wrong ones. Many students that I've taught in O-Levels and say that, oh miss, we were not very serious in O-Levels. Now that's very sad. If I tell you a year later that, oh, I wasn't serious last year, I didn't teach you well, but this year I'm going to be serious, I'm sure you're going to want to kill me. So remember, every time give your studies your best. I'm not saying everybody's best is the same. Somebody's best would be an A grade, somebody's best would be a B grade, somebody's best would be even a C grade, and I would be very happy with that if that was his best. So life is all about making choices. Which structures are present in a root hair cell? Now we know nucleus is present in all cells, except in the xylem, of course, there's no nucleus, and not in the phloem also. But which structures are present in a root hair cell, nucleus or chloroplast? So nucleus is present, yes. So you have to make the choices between A and B, but then there's a choice, chloroplast. So you have to remember is root hair cell would not have any chloroplast. It would not have any chloroplast because they are inside the soil, so they cannot photosynthesize. There's no light there in the soil, it's dark. So the answer was B. Then what is an example of active transport? Movement of glucose molecules into the cells of the villi. This is exactly the syllabus point. Movement of glucose molecules down a concentration gradient. No, it's only in the villi, it's by active transport. Movement of ions in the blood plasma. Movement of water in the transpiration stream. Please remember that's not active. That's just the suction force which is created by the transpiration or the removal of water vapors from the mesophyll cells, and then of course the water becomes vapor, and then the vapor diffuses out of the leaf. Then coming to question number 3, the roots of a plant are placed in a dilute solution containing chloride and nitrate ions. So the roots of a plant, so we have the stem, and then we have these roots, and the roots are placed in chloride and nitrate. Say the roots of a plant are placed in a dilute solution containing chloride and nitrates. The graph shows how the rate of uptake of chloride and nitrate ions by the roots of the plant varies with oxygen concentration. Now, one of the students has asked me on my YouTube channel is to explain the graph. So now what I do is on the graph, I tell you is you always put some numbers on it. So here it's 1, put 2 here, put 3 here, put 4 here, and put 5 here. So oxygen concentration in arbitrary units, arbitrary units is just a figure. We say 1 would probably mean 5% oxygen, or 10 would mean 2, and so on and so forth. Then the rate of ion uptake, let's put something here as well. So let's put 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. Now you see another very important thing is happening is that even though we are increasing the oxygen concentration, the chloride ions are, the rate is constant. The rate of ion uptake, you all must read the y-axis very carefully. I'm emphasizing in this paper on that very much because your graph readings are absolutely pathetic. I give you a graph and you have no clue what you're talking about. It's because you haven't developed the skill to understand a graph. So the rate of chloride ions uptake is constant. Say it is 2.5, so it's remaining 2.5 all throughout. Even though we are increasing the oxygen concentration from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. But then let's look at another one. Now let's look at another interesting one is, now when we increase the oxygen, the concentration increases of the rate of ion uptake for the nitrate ions. And then even though you are increasing the oxygen after this point, the rate becomes constant. Now what you have to understand is the chloride ions are going in by diffusion. But the nitrate ions are going in by active transport. Now here comes the $1,000,000 question. What is happening between B and C? What is the limiting factor? Now here I'm sure we'll have very few students answering that question, and that is what I will give you in the CIE if I was your examiner. You see, why has the rate become constant? Because there is a very important thing which you all have to remember. This is the root hair cell. Now, this is the cell membrane of the root hair cell, and outside is the cell wall. As you all know, cell wall is fully permeable, so that doesn't matter. Cell wall allows every damn thing to enter it, so it doesn't matter at all. Cell wall fully permeable. But what will the cell membrane have? The cell membrane will have channel proteins, and these channel proteins will become the limiting factor. Just like in a cinema hall, you have four doors. So at one point in time, four people can enter. There might be a big line, but four people can enter at one point in time. So why has the rate become constant? The rate has become constant because now the number of channel proteins is the limiting factor. The number of channel proteins allowing the nitrate ions to be coming in, because there must be, say, 10 channel proteins or 12 channel proteins. And when you increase the oxygen concentration, again what happens? Increasing the concentration increases respiration and increases the release of energy. And we need energy, but we've got the energy, but we don't have enough channel protein, so the rate has become constant. Now I would give you an MCQ on that. I would say, what is happening between B and C? Even though we are increasing oxygen, it's an active transport process. So why isn't the rate of active transport increasing? Why wasn't this a linear graph? Why wasn't this kept on increasing and went on increasing? Why has it become constant? The very good students who understand things will actually, who take interest, who know biology, who like studying it, who want to understand it, will be able to do this question. I would easily make you a question on this part of the graph, the B and C of the graph. I would say, why has it become constant? Is it increasing? Yes. Why? Because oxygen is increasing. So more respiration, more energy released. So okay, but then why has it become constant? Very, very interesting question. Everybody remember it. You might get that question. I have no clue, but if I was on the examining body, I would definitely have made a question on that. And coming on to question number four test tubes, each containing 2 centimeter of amylase. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 test tubes. All of them have 2 centimeter of amylase. So the volume is the same in all three of them, on four of them, sorry. They all have 2 centimeter cube of amylase. Please remember volume. It's a solution. It's a shorba. So you measure it volume cm cube. So 4 test tubes, each containing 2 cm amylase solution, are treated as follows. One is boiled, then cooled to 1 degree Celsius. Then boiled, then cooled to 25 degrees Celsius. Because please remember, when it's boiled, it's 100 degrees Celsius, so it's just cooled down to 25. Frozen. Now here we have frozen, not the movie Frozen. Frozen, then warmed to 1 degree Celsius. Frozen, then warmed to 25 degrees Celsius. 10 cm cube of starch solution was then added to each tube. Then we added 10 cm cube of starch. So it's quite a bit of starch that we added here. 10 cm cube of starch was added to all the 4 test tubes. And then added to each, and after 5 minutes, important, after 5 minutes, 2 drops of iodine solution were added to each tube. Which row shows the results? Now the main thing is, you've got to understand which one would have the amylase working. The amylase would be working in, you see, boiled then cooled. Boiled and cooled will not work, because once it is boiled, well, the enzyme is denatured. So starch would be present, nothing would happen to the starch. When you added iodine, starch solution reacts with iodine and gives you a blue-black color. So it says after 2 drops of iodine were added. So it had to be black, 1 had to be black, 2 had to be black. Why? Because it was boiled. When you boil it, the enzyme is denatured. Don't say the enzyme is killed. Again, that's wrong. Frozen, then warmed to 1 degree, frozen, then warmed to 25 degrees. So 1 degree is too low a temperature for any enzyme to work. So it will remain black as well. 25 degrees is a slightly desirable temperature, and some of the starch would be converted because you would have 5 minutes, so the starch would have been converted, so there would be no starch. So no starch in it, so iodine will remain yellow. No starch in it, so iodine will remain yellow. So that means there's no starch in it. We just added it. The amylase is not going to react with it. The water is not going to react with it because it was an amylase solution. So please understand this question. Good question. I haven't seen this in a previous paper. So I've been asked by some of you to do this 13 and 12 papers, so I'm doing those for you. Question number 5. In an investigation for photosynthesis, 4 leaves are set up as shown in the diagram. 4 leaves are set up as shown in the diagram. After 24 hours in the light, each leaf is tested for starch. Which tube is used to investigate whether chlorophyll is needed for photosynthesis? Now, if you remember, I've talked about this in previous papers. We use variegated leaves. Why do we use variegated leaves? Because in a variegated leaf, there is a white portion and there is a green portion. So the white portion is the area. So this is the green portion. Now this contains chlorophyll. And the white portion, this is the white portion. The white portion does not contain any chlorophyll, so there should be no photosynthesis, there should be no starch. So we use variegated leaves because what do we have a control? If you say boil the leaf, remove the chlorophyll, I'm sorry, the leaf is dead, then you can't do an experiment on that. You have to do an experiment on a variegated leaf to prove that chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis because this white area, no chlorophyll. No chlorophyll, no starch. So what describes the upper cuticle of a leaf? A non-cellular layer. That was the main important thing. It's just like a lamination. A non-cellular layer preventing water loss from the leaf. Single layer were both wrong. A permeable layer, that was also rubbish because you see cuticle prevents transpiration. Then question 7. A green leaf is picked at time 7, 07.00, 7 o'clock in the morning, and immediately placed in a sealed test tube containing hydrogen carbonate indicator solution. The tube is kept near a window for 24 hours. The table shows how the indicator changes in color. Leaf hydrogen carbonate indicator color purple, red, yellow, amount of carbon dioxide compared to average atmospheric concentration. When it's purple, it is less than normal. When will it be less than normal? When the CO2 is being taken up by photosynthesis. And when will it be red? It will be red when it is a normal. That means there's no respiration, no photosynthesis, only it's just normal. Yellow would be when it is more than normal. The amount of carbon dioxide compared to the average atmospheric concentration is more than normal. That is when it's only respiring. So a lot of carbon dioxide is being produced and it would increase in the air around the leaf. Which color will the hydrogen carbonate indicator be at times 12? Remember, we took it at 7 in the morning and then at 12 at noon, and 24 would be at night time. Raat ke 12 baje. 12 o'clock at night. So please understand this question. At 12, why would it be purple? Because it would be less than normal, because photosynthesis would be very rapid because it is near the window and there's light. So it would be purple because they will be less than normal. So this would be purple. This would be purple. At night, it will be yellow. Why would it be yellow? Because the leaf is respiring and producing carbon dioxide. The leaf is respiring and producing carbon dioxide. At night it's dark. 12 o'clock at night, midnight. So there will be more carbon dioxide. This is a question in which it checks whether we've understood respiration and photosynthesis, how both of them are happening all the time. But I mean, respiration is happening all the time, but photosynthesis is only happening during the day. So this was question 7. Then coming to question number 8. Which classes of foods contain the elements shown? Now you know if it is nitrogen, it has to be proteins. So that means the answer was between A and C. The rest is all rubbish. This is what you do. The first thing is you come and narrow down to two choices. Now we have to figure out which one is correct. Now, why is C wrong? Because nitrogen is not present in fats. So this was wrong. And so that is why A is the correct answer. Nitrogen is only present in proteins. In carbohydrates, there is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. In fats, there is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. In proteins, there is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Sulfur, please remember, is only in some amino acids. Question 9. A positive food test produces an orange precipitate. Which test was performed? Naturally, it was Benedict's. You remember biuret is for protein. And protein, but this was wrong. Protein was heated with Benedict's. Benedict's is only for sugars, reducing sugars, glucose. Protein was mixed with biuret and heated. Yes, but we didn't get an orange. That gives a biuret gives a purple color. If protein is present, it's a purple color. P purple, P protein, P present. So this is how you have to remember it. You see, this is all rote learning. Some of the things you have to just ratify. Then coming to the question number 10, the diagram represents the liver and some associated structures. So from the heart, and then we have ileum. So this P is the hepatic portal vein. So what does the blood in blood vessel P transport? Glucose to the liver, glycogen to the liver, wrong, urea to the ileum, wrong, bile to the ileum, wrong. So ileum and the liver is connected by this vessel which is called the hepatic portal vein. And the hepatic portal vein is a vein, and it carries all the food substances that you have absorbed except fats. Not fats, but everything else: glucose, amino acid, water, vitamins, and mineral salts like calcium, like vitamin D. So this is also a revision that you are able to do with me when I do these papers with you. The diagram shows a cross section of a leaf. From which part does most of the water evaporate during transpiration? Now, A was the cuticle, B was the lower epidermis, C was the surface of the spongy mesophil, C was the opening of the stomata, and D was the surface of the spongy mesophil. Now, that is the exact definition in your syllabus. What is transpiration? Evaporation from the surface of the mesophil cells. And then evaporation means that there is fluid around it. And then this becomes a vapor. So evaporation has to take place, and then this vapor diffuses out. From a liquid state, it has to become a gaseous state. So it has to become a vapor. So from which part does most of the water evaporate during transpiration? You have to understand is that water is around these mesophil cells. It's a thin layer of moisture around it. Just like you have your wet hair, and after some time your hair dries up. Well, what has happened to the liquid water on your hair? Now it has become vapor and it's gone into the air. Question 12. In an experiment to investigate the transport of water, the roots of a plant are placed in water, colored with a dye. The diagrams show sections of the leaf, stem, and root. Syllabus point. Which numbered parts will become stained by the dye? Now you have to remember is leaf, upper, xylem. So in the leaf, the upper area is the xylem, which is this one, these ones. I'm just going to shade them. This area, this area, this area, this area, and this area. This is the xylem. The xylem is leaf, upper xylem. So leaf, not under, leaf, upper xylem. And this is the lower part because you can see there's this ridge here on this side. The midrib, it shows a little convex shape. If you just go and look at a leaf, go into the garden and pick a leaf and have a look at it, and you'll see this bulge on the lower side of the leaf. Then in the stem, it will be 4, and in the root, it will be 6, which is inside is the xylem. I've done this many times. I'll just show you some. You can look up and they can just type in distribution of xylem and phloem in the root, stem, and leaf, and you get lots and lots of these images. Now, this is a diagram for you to share this. Look at this diagram between the artery and the vein. Now, if you look at the artery and the vein, you have something very important to see is that the artery has a very thick wall. You see, the artery has a very thick wall. The vein has a very thin wall. And you can see there is muscle in the wall of the arteries. There's very little in the vein, there's very little smooth muscle. And there's more smooth muscle here. And the elastic layer, you can also see the elastic layer. There's hardly any elastic tissue in the vein. So please pause the video here, have a look at it. Maybe you can download some more pictures of arteries and veins and have a very clear understanding. When you're watching these videos, please, on a piece of paper, write down areas which are not clear to you. And then, search them in the Google and then have a look at it and be able to figure it out. Which row shows the blood vessels carrying blood to and from the organs listed? So blood vessels carrying blood to the organ. Pulmonary artery carries blood to the lungs and pulmonary vein carries blood away from the lungs. So that was the simplest one. Aorta, heart, pulmonary vein, that was wrong. Hepatic artery to the liver and hepatic portal vein, no, that connects the intestine and the liver, that was wrong. And then the blood going to this renal artery and going away would be the renal vein. And so this is in the reverse order, so this was wrong. Then 2 hours after eating a meal, question 15. 2 hours after eating a meal, which vessel contains blood with the highest concentration of glucose? Naturally, because it's going to be absorbed, so it would be the hepatic portal vein. After eating a meal, which vessel contains blood with the highest concentration of glucose? So that has to be hepatic portal vein, can't be anything else. Now, question 16, I know one of the WhatsApp groups, a student had asked this question, and I thought when this person asked these questions, it tells me how good or bad they are in bio. The type of questions you ask me actually tells me your level of understanding of biology. So at which point are the muscles of the diaphragm? Now, if you have no clue what is inhaling and exhaling, you can't do this question. You can't do inni, mini, mina, mo. You have to understand is that the diaphragm muscle contracts and the external intercostal muscle contracts and the volume increases. So let's look at the volume graph. Now, when it starts to contract, the volume is starting to increase. So it had to be A. At which point muscles of the diaphragm starting to contract. When they fully contract, they increase the volume immensely. So the volume increasing, शुरू में ही हम बात कर रहे हैं. We were talking of it early in the beginning. So it had to be A. Then coming on to question number 17. A new organism is discovered. It is found to be made of cells containing DNA. Cells. So it cannot be a virus. Virus is non-cellular. I keep on saying this time and time again. Virus is non-cellular. What is a cell? Cell is got a cell membrane or a cell wall and it has cytoplasm. What is a room? A room is a space with walls. So a football field is not a room. To which group of organism could it belong to and which group could it not belong? It could not. If it's a cell, it cannot be a virus. And that was the only answer. That was the only thing you could have picked up. There's no other answer which we were going to be confused about it. Either you knew that the virus is not a cell or you didn't know it. So that means if you didn't know it, you're very changar. High level changar. Now again a graph question which one of the students has said, please explain the graph questions. So now it says amount of oxygen produced per hour. Let's put figures here. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And time is x, y, and the time is in this direction, is on the x-axis. So maybe x is maybe 7 in the morning or 5 in the evening or whatever. Which processes are occurring at time x and y? Now in x, a lot of oxygen is being produced. So means a lot of photosynthesis. So it had to be this and this. Now at Y, the oxygen is very little. So it has to be respiration. The oxygen is being used up for respiration. And then again, at X, you see time X, what is happening? Respiration is taking place at all times. So respiration would be taking place at time X as well. Respiration, but photosynthesis is more than respiration. So more oxygen will be released. At time Y, we have less oxygen. So photosynthesis is zero and respiration is more. But please remember, respiration is occurring at all times. It's only the photosynthesis. Like you eat food every day, but in the last year you put on a lot of weight. But the year before that you did not put on any weight, but you were eating as usual at the normal way. But this year, when you've been eating, you've eaten both years, but this year you put on a lot of weight. Your clothes don't fit you anymore. So what has been different? You've been eating both the years, last year and the year before that. But last year you put on weight. So understand this balance between respiration and photosynthesis. Respiration is occurring at all times, but only when there is light, or when there is daylight, or when there is sunlight, then photosynthesis is taking place. Question 19. What gives a comparison between anaerobic in humans and in yeast? Chemical, alcohol, carbon dioxide, glucose, oxygen. Anaerobic respiration in humans. So the chemical is carbon dioxide. Anaerobic respiration in humans not produced and produced. Now the other was alcohol. Alcohol is not produced in humans at all. Glucose is used, yes. In anaerobic respiration also glucose is used. So this was wrong here. Then oxygen, not used. It's not used in either of them. We are talking of anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic means no oxygen. So this will be chungered if somebody wrote D, because oxygen is not used in anaerobic respiration. I mean, that child must be really, he doesn't know any biology. He or she has been watching Netflix. He's made the choice, Netflix. He's going to do his PhD in Netflix. Question 20. If the air temperature is higher than the core body temperature, air temperature, this room is at 40 degrees Celsius. These days, if you go out, it's very hot. So our body is constantly gaining heat from the environment. If the air temperature is higher than the core body temperature, which processes can increase heat loss from the body? Now imagine you, the human being, you are at 37 degrees Celsius. I mean, it's a pathetic human being I've made. And the outside temperature is say 42 degrees Celsius. Now you're gaining heat all the time. So how can, it says which processes can increase? It's only evaporation by sweat, of the sweat that you have. So sweat production doesn't cool you down, but when the sweat evaporates, it's going to take the heat, the latent heat of vaporization, the heat needed to make it evaporate is going to come from your body. Vasodilation in the skin, you don't lose. This is another very important thing you've got to understand. Something at a lower body temperature can't lose heat to a higher body temperature. Say if you've got something hot, like you've got a hot pizza lying on one side, and then you've got ice cream lying on one side. So the ice cream is going to gain heat from the hot pizza if the two boxes are lying together. So please try to understand is that, we human beings are at 37, the environment is at 47, we are gaining heat. How can we lose heat by vasodilation? Vasodilation means that there is more heat in your skin capillaries, so more heat lost by radiation. But it can't be from an organism or a body which is at a lower temperature to something which is at a higher temperature. Just imagine, I mean, the pizza and the ice cream box lying together in one place. So the ice cream is cold. Now ice cream is going to gain heat from the pizza. It's not going to be it can't be the other way around. You can't be losing heat from the. So understand this that you are at 37, the outside temperature is 42, so you can't lose heat by vasodilation. It can't be from a colder mass of cells to the air which is at a higher temperature. Okay, I finished this video here and we'll continue in the next video. Thank you very much.